Hi everyone! The purpose of today's video is to look at adding fractions. Be sure that you are either taking notes as we go or taking screenshots of the steps and saving them in Notability. And also be sure you have paper so that you can work out the examples as you watch the video. The first step to adding fractions is to make sure that both of the numbers are written as fractions first. So if you're faced with a problem that has a mixed number or a whole number, you want to be sure to turn them into improper fractions first. Okay, once you have the fractions, then what you can do is make common denominators. And you can do that using the giant 1. The third step is you just add the numerators. Now be careful to pay attention to signs. So sometimes it'll be a positive number, sometimes it'll be a negative number. So focus on the signs in front. And then finally simplify or reduce if possible. And one thing I want to just kind of draw your attention to is that it's okay to end with an improper fraction. Improper doesn't mean wrong, so go ahead and leave it as an improper fraction when you're done, and that's perfectly fine, just so long as it's simplified. All right, let's try this example. We have 3/5 plus 4/8. And I always like to rewrite it vertically, and you'll see why in just a second here. Now we're looking to figure out what number does 5 and 8 both go into. So what would be a good common denominator to use here? And I know they both go into 40. So I'm trying to turn each of these into a fraction with the denominator of 40, because we need our common denominators in order to add them. Okay, this is where the giant 1 comes in, and you guys may have seen this last year. All right, we're thinking of what number do I have to multiply this 5 by to get an answer of 40? So 5 times 8 is 40, and I have to multiply the top by the same number as the bottom in order to keep the fraction as the same amount. So now I have 3 times 8 is 24. And now I look down here and say, okay, what did I have to multiply this 8 by to get 40? Had to do times 5. Well, if I do it to the bottom, I need to do it to the top. And now I just multiply across. 4 times 5 is 20. So now I've got my fractions with common denominators. 24/40 plus 20/40. All right, and so now, step 3, add the numerators. 24 plus 20 is 44. And the denominator stays the same, and we have 44/40. Our final step here is to simplify if we can, and I know already I can reduce it because they're both even numbers, so they're both divisible by 2, but I see they also are both divisible by 4, so I'm going to divide both the top and bottom by 4 right away, and I have 11/10. And that's my final answer. Now, I know some of you want to go and turn it back into a mixed number. You can do that. So that would be 1 and 1/10. But it's perfectly fine to keep it as an improper fraction here. Let's see what happens when we put a negative fraction in the mix. So we've got negative 3/4 plus 5/8. And again, in this one, they're already fractions, so we can kind of ignore step 1. Step 2, make common denominators. So I'm thinking again, what do 4 and 8 both go into? Well, they both go into 8, so 5/8 can just stay as it is. Okay. So if you can just leave it 5/8 as 5/8. Technically speaking, you're doing times 1/1, but that part you can leave out. And then 3/4 we need to turn into 8ths. And so you're thinking, well, what do I have to multiply 4 by to get 8? 2. So I have to do the same thing to the top. And negative 3 times 2 is negative 6. Or you can just do 3 times 2 is 6, but make sure you bring this negative over here. I'm actually going to put it in red so you can really see it here. Bring it over to your fraction on the right. Okay, so now we have negative 6/8 plus 5/8. Add the numerators. So we have negative 6 plus 5. And we get negative 1. And then the denominators stay the same. So negative 1/8 is our answer. And I can't simplify that anymore, so that's our final answer. Let's try one more example together before you do some on your own. All right, so we have negative 4/5 plus negative 3/4. All right, and again, I'm looking for my denominator here, and the first number that 5 and 4 both go into is going to be 20. So that's going to be our common denominators here. So how do I get from 5 to 20? Well, I have to multiply by 4. If I do it to the bottom, I have to do it to the top. There's my giant 1. And I get 16/20. Don't forget to bring over that negative from over here. And then for 3/4, I know that 4 times 5 is 20, so I need to do the same to the top. And I have 3 times 5 is 15, and again, bring over this negative. So the new problem we're looking at here is negative 16/20 plus negative 15/20. So we've got our common denominators. Now we need to add our numerators. Well, I have negative 16 plus negative 15. So that'll give me negative 31, and my denominator stays the same at 20. And again, it's improper. I can leave it that way. There's my final answer because there's no common factors in negative 31 or 20. Now it's your turn to try a couple. I'd like you to pause the video, try these on your paper, and then come back and see how you did. All right, did you give it a shot? Let's see, I already rewrote them here vertically and threw in my giant 1 frames. So now I see, okay, 6 and 5 both go into 30. And 6 times 5 is 30, 5 times 5 is 25. And now down here, 5 times 6 is 30, so 2 times 6 is 12. So now I'm adding 25 plus 12, and I have 37, oops. Fix this here, 37/30. Okay, or 1 and 7/30 would also be correct. All right, let's try this second one. I'm looking at 3 and 5. They both go into 15. And then I see 3 times 5 is 15, so I have to do 1 times 5. And don't forget to bring over this negative. And then 5 times 3 is 15, and 2 times 3 is 6, and that one was a positive. So now I have negative 5/15 plus 6/15. Well, negative 5 plus 6 is 1, and my denominator stays the same. And 1/15 is my answer because I can't simplify that anymore. So how'd you do? Did you get them both correct? If so, you're ready for the practice. If you still have some questions, make sure to check with a classmate, ask your teacher. You can go back and watch the video again, or go to the extra resources folder at the end of this folder to get some additional help.